You know, I've had a love affair with photography since I was about 5 years old. I've always known that I wanted to be a photographer. When I was a little kid, I could spend hours looking at pictures. In fact, I did, because I was the middle daughter of 3 girls, and I was always in trouble. I was the kid who was called Jellyfingers. And so my parents found, though, that if they would hand me a photo album, that I could be content for hours looking at pictures. But not just pictures of anything. It had to be pictures of people. And I know that that's why I've had a wonderful career over the last 30 years in photographing people. I started with brides, and then I worked my way into babies, and not like I really wanted to do that, but it just happened. You see, this is how it took place. I got married to my high school sweetheart in 1975. My husband and I are still married today. We just had our 40th wedding anniversary, only because he's extremely patient. And you see, you'd think as much as I loved photography that I'd probably hire a good photographer for my own wedding 40 years ago, right? No. I had a friend photograph my wedding because she had a good camera. Well, I learned pretty quickly that that was not really the greatest way to hire somebody. And then in 1981, my life completely changed. My husband walked in the door from Georgia, and he said, "Hey, baby, how do you feel about moving to California?" Well, I'd never been there, so I said, "Let's go." We sold our house in 2 weeks and moved. Needless to say, that wasn't one of the smartest things we ever did, but boy, am I glad we did it, because we were too dumb to know the consequences. Within 3 months, I was completely broke, and we didn't have any money. And I got a job, no, not as a photographer, as an executive secretary, because that's what women did in my day. I will tell you right away that no, I did not learn my craft in photography from some wonderful prestigious school. You see, I graduated from high school with a 2.0 GPA, and I want you to know I graduated at the top of the bottom of my class. I am very proud of that, let me tell you. But you know what? I wasn't dumb. I wasn't interested. And you know, I find that many people who love photography are that way. You know, we're like, oh, where's the butterfly or squirrel? You know, we just get distracted very easily. And if they'd shown me how calculus and high math could have benefited me in something I wanted to do, I'd have been all over that bad boy. So at any rate, the day that changed my life was in 1984. There was a friend of mine, she said, "Hey, Bambi, I know this photographer who's looking for someone to photograph weddings for him. Why don't you go talk to him?" And so I did, but I will tell you, I almost lost out on that opportunity, because this is exactly what happened. He had a wonderful upstairs studio, and as I walked up the stairs, I noticed that he had all these pictures, and I started getting more and more nervous that he'd turn me down. I put my hand on the doorknob, took it off the doorknob, ran down the building and out of the building and down the block. Thank goodness I got to the end of the block and there was a stoplight. And I went, "What are you doing? Just put your big girl panties on, girl, and get your butt back up those stairs and you go talk to him. The worst thing that's going to happen is he'll say no." Of course, he didn't. He said yes, but only because I told him I'd do it for free. I'm not embellishing one bit, kids. I'm not joking you at all. But that was wonderful training for me, because that's what I personally needed. I'm one of those people that if I see it, I can do it. So today I work with a lot less gear than I did in those days. I use the Nikon D4 and the D750, a variety of different lenses. And yes, I have speed lights, and I have wonderful pro photo studio lighting, and I have some backgrounds and things like that from Backdrop Outlet. But you know what? All of those things, I just need a camera. And that's what I hope to teach you about today, is the importance of the tool, that you don't necessarily have to have all this stuff. And this is what I shot in 1987, guys. I know all of you want to learn how to do this, right? Well, you see, here's the funny part about this. What you don't know is that blue background is what we all did in those days. And I had it outside. I mean, that is just wrong. It is just wrong. And so one of the things I've learned in my career is I've learned to keep it simple. I don't need all of that nonsense, and I certainly don't want to pose a bride in front of a blue background. It just makes me cringe thinking about that. So here's what I use today. Give me a wall and a window and a reflector, and I am home free. What does that mean to you? It means that whether you're photographing brides or babies, that you literally can open the floodgates of your imagination, and you can do anything. You can photograph anywhere if you just have a wall and a window and a little bit of a reflector. Well, you want to see what you can do with that? How about this? This is in my studio, and I just took this picture about 2 weeks ago for today's Bride magazine. I shoot their editorial. just a simple window in my studio, and I hired this gal to come in and just make these huge paper flowers. And we took little tiny tacks and we put them in the wall, and then we hung the flowers on the wall. And they're really, really thin tacks so that if once we take them down, it's not a big deal. I don't have to worry about, lots of big holes in my walls. But what I want you to notice is look at the way the light falls across her body in a very subtle, soft way. And because the light's coming in at about a 45-degree angle, you see the detail on that beautiful gown. And when you're photographing weddings, it is all about the dress. It really is. And so that same concept of using a wall and a window is what I use to capture this image of this beautiful woman. And in her case, notice because we have those nice shadows coming in on the right-hand side, you're able to see her body's shape. You see the beautiful detail in her back. And you get, more importantly, or not more, but as important, you get to see the beautiful detail on her wedding gown. Something that's very, very important to many clients and many people today. But one of the things that happened in my career was my bride started having babies. And I'm not going to kid you, I want you to know I would break out in a cold sweat. And I had one. It's not like I didn't have any kids, but it just made me just cringe with fear, the thought of photographing pregnant women and little children. But you know what? That was until I realized that all babies are just little brides. They have so much in common. They have a meltdown at the drop of a hat. They do. You have to placate them. You have to, give them drinks like, sometimes beer and wine and champagne. And then with babies, you stick a bottle in their mouth, right? Or what, something else. So I started thinking of ways that I could connect these things. And whether you do this professionally or not, it's about who you're photographing. What is that person like? And so I've really tried to adapt those concepts in what I do as a photographer today. So I just shot this last week of one of my brides holding her newborn. She's just laying across the bed in her home, just like this, holding her newborn baby. And I asked her, I said, I want you to smell your baby through your mouth, just like that. And that way I could capture an image that had wonderful meaning. With this young father, this is done in my studio using just one of my walls in the studio. But what I want you to notice is the way the light is falling on the subject. Notice that on the background, that there's also a highlight on the background. That's critical because you see, I want to have a nice light on that baby's face. You notice I'm photographing from the shadow side of this child. And so because there's a highlight on the wall behind them, I get a highlight on that baby's face, and then it doesn't go dead. We have a nice highlight in the background, which provides separation between my subject and the background, and also silhouettes allows the dad's face to be in silhouette, so we get context. How about laying on the ground to capture an image? I laid literally on the flat of my back right in front of this dad with his little boy as he was throwing his son up in the air, just to create something that's a little bit different. I try to find a different camera angle. So I think it's important to move yourself around your subject. I love working with shallow depth of field and good glass, and that's one of the things I love about the Nikon gear that I use, is I can go down to like 1.4, and all of the nonsense in somebody's home goes bye-bye. It's gone. A lower camera angle in this case draws your eye right to this beautiful little girl's face right here. There's another kind of lighting that I like to use, and it's tungsten, or just lights that you find in your home, like a table lamp, an overhead light fixture. That's what I mean when you don't have to have it all to have it all. You can use existing light sources to create beautiful, beautiful images of your subject. So why not tungsten? And I learned this by photographing weddings. I would walk in the bathroom, and quite often I don't have a lot of time. My subjects, sometimes they want me to do things very swiftly. And so I thought, okay, well, what can I do with what I've got? You see, that's really the key to success in taking a good picture is it's not that the planets all line up perfectly for us and not for another person, but it's learning to say, okay, what do I have to work with, and how can I take the best picture possible with what I've got in front of me right now? And so whether you're doing a bride in front of a mirror getting ready, or a couple, you're photographing a couple outside where just in front of their beautiful, the place where they had their wedding reception, think about what kind of light do you have there, and what can you do with what you've got? And so in this case, I'm using that beautiful tungsten light. You notice that I'm photographing into that light source, which will help to isolate my subject. And then it brings life to the photograph. And guess what? You can do the same thing when it comes to photographing your beautiful children. I prefer to photograph, when I photograph families with children, I like to photograph the kids in their home if possible. I like the fact that they're very comfortable in their own home environment. And it's my goal to create images that when that parent looks at those pictures that they say, that's my child. That's their expression. And so the mother, in the course of an interview, told me that she always bathes her little girl, her baby, in the sink in the bathroom, and that one of the games that they play is that she pours water down on the little baby in her hands. And so I said, well, great, let's do that. So we went into the bathroom, and the tungsten light is from the ceiling or just from the light fixture overhead. So I said, well, as you pour that, let's see what she does. And of course, as the baby is talking to her, mom's talking to her baby, guess what? Nature takes over, and that baby starts looking up like that. So it allows you to capture beautiful, real-time images without a lot of fluff. You know, we talked about earlier about using windows. Well, why not photograph straight into the window? In this case, with this beautiful bride, you'll notice that she's right in front of the blinds. One of the great things about photographing into the window is that you can minimize like background junk, you know, like dress tissue papers and all that nonsense. Expose for the subject. You're going to overexpose your background, which is a good thing. It works not only for brides, but it also works for beautiful ballerinas. Do you notice how her leg, one knee is bent, and then the highlight is on the forward leg? Do you notice that? That's important because what that does is that creates separation on those legs. And the same is true with a little mommy and the dad, a pregnant woman. Separate those body parts and you're going to get great images. I created a platform for her to stand on. That same mommy, this is her son and her husband. I like to pre-plan pictures. So in other words, I knew that this child, they brought this big cake in for this little baby. So in photographing, I move myself around the scene so that I can capture a variety of different images, as I did with this little boy. Put your subject between two different things, as I did with this young lady, so that you frame your subject. And also, with little kids, by the way, if you want to stop their movement, hey, you know what you got to do? Confine them, put them in a crib, and then they don't have anywhere else to go. And then start playing with them. Learn the fine art of playtime. It is so really important. I like to bring things for kids to play with. In this case, I knew that I wanted to photograph in this particular location. So what I did is I pre-planned to put that little boy's favorite toy where I did. And then I took a light meter reading ahead of time and had my camera set up so that all I had to do was capture as soon as those kids walked over. So do pre-planning. It's okay for kids to scream and have fun. With this little boy, one of the things we do in our studio is I just say, hey, Dad, put him on your shoulders, and guess what? You can scream in here. There's no indoor voice here in the studio. And so this little boy let out with this most amazing laughter, and of course, I got a great image that became a very large wall portrait. And this is what I'm talking about, is creating images of people that tell more than just what a person looked like. Who were they? Were they this fat little baby that had tons and tons of rolls? Or were they somebody, you know, was it somebody who's more quiet like the little girl you saw before? This is my favorite thing in my entire studio is my couch. Now, yes, we have people sit on this couch, but here's the real benefit to this couch. Kids jumping on it. This is what we do every time someone comes in the studio with children. I want to get those kids, they need to be mine. They need to be my friends. And so the first thing we do is, guess what? On the couch. So this little girl starts jumping on the couch. Again, I have my exposure already. I have the right lens on my camera so that all I have to do, I get to take pictures. So what does he do? He decides he's going to do his little karate thing on the couch. Now, safety first. Mom and Dad are on each side so that, you know, they'll catch them if they fall. But do you see the point? The kids start having a great time. And again, keeping it simple, just a window and a reflector, I'm able to capture this. But it doesn't stop there. Here's where it really gets special. I've been photographing this young man's family for over 20 years. I photographed his parents' wedding. It started with his grandfather. The grandfather was the president of Hasselblad Camera Company, and he asked me to do a headshot. So I did his headshot, and that led me to photographing his son's wedding, his dad, his daughter's graduation pictures from high school, and then her wedding, and then his sister's weddings, and so forth. So I've photographed this entire family for many, many years. So one of the traditions that I have is every time I photograph a wedding for them, the next day we do family pictures. So as times would happen, I go, okay, we're going to do this as I did last year. And I said, okay, we're going to do it in my hotel suite because it's snowing outside. Opened up the windows. The boys come in the room, and I go, okay, kids, hey, guess what? One at a time, I want you to jump on my couch. First one. Then comes the middle one, and then the young. And then the most magical experience in my entire career took place. About that time, we noticed GreatGrandpa, 93-year-old GreatGrandpa, taking off his shoes. And I looked at him and I went, Ralph, honey, what are you doing? And he goes, well, I'm going to jump on the bed. And I go, oh, no, you're not. And he goes, oh, yes, I am. And I go, oh, no, you're not. And he goes, yes, I am. He takes his shoes off, and I am terrified, holding my breath. He climbs on the bed, tries to stand up, which he can't do, thank goodness. And what does he do? But you know what? Here's why this photograph is so powerful and so important to me. You see, his great-grandchildren got to see a side of Grandpa that many don't get to see. You know, so many times we have the kids grouped all by themselves, and we're going to, you know, we do things together, and then moms and dads, they do things just by themselves, and then the old people just kind of in their little wheelchair or whatever, just like in a corner, and they just get ignored. Well, let me tell you, these great-grandkids do not ignore Grandpa. What a wonderful legacy to leave your great-grandchildren, and you can be assured that when he does pass on at some point, that those kids have the most remarkable story. But what I love about it is what happened next. Does that look like the face of a 93-year-old man to you? No, because he looks like a young man that he used to be. And so I really believe that whether you're photographing families and kids and brides and babies, that it's all part of the human experience. And I love capturing that human experience. You see, this is another photograph of Ralph with his wife, Marty. And I took this 6 months before Marty died of Alzheimer's. And she actually really helped me to appreciate the value of photography, the lasting value of beautiful family history. And she couldn't remember anything about her adult life or her current life. But they had hundreds of things of hers, pictures from when they were young and newly married. And they would bring them out, and she could still talk about her marriage. And she had those beautiful pictures from her family history of her and Ralph's marriage. So I truly believe that family history is so important for us to record. So whether you're a great-grandpa, a grandfather, mother, father, or kids, it's important for us to capture that human experience. And one more thing that I think is really important for people to know about: get them printed. I feel that it's such a disservice nowadays to just keep them on your phones or put them in the cloud. I'm not saying don't do those things. Those are important elements. But you know what? Put them in your hands and hold them, and they take on a life of their own. And it really becomes something very, very special that you'll have that will be a treasured thing that you do for their lives. We do books for almost every client that we photograph, an album, a collection of images from any session. And that way I have the ability to show them, that way they have something that they can showcase to their kids and their grandkids and so forth. So in closing, here's what I'd like to say. Lay a strong foundation on concepts. Don't put yourself little blinders on your eyes and say, this is all I'm ever going to do. This is what I want to do. I only want to take pictures of landscapes, or I only want to take pictures of brides, or whatever. Keep an open mind, and if you lay your foundation on concepts, you can adapt as you decide to change. And we all change as we grow older. Believe me, I'm a girl of the 80s, and trust me, I do not want to wear big shoulder pads anymore or that big hair that we did then. Are you with me? You don't have to have it all to have it all. In other words, don't feel like you have to have every single tool that's made to get good pictures. A great expression is perfection. I'd love to say thank you to Nikon, and thank you also very, very much for allowing me to speak with you this morning. I do answer, by the way, all my emails, Bambi@cantrellportrait.com, and I hope that our paths will cross again. Thank you so much.